Hi, this is Joe Bolen, and today we're going to discuss the option strict setting. In this case, we're going to turn option strict on for our compiler. And there's a good reason why we're going to be very strict about our programming. We want to be aware of when we're doing conversion from a large data type to a smaller data type. And that's what option strict does. It prevents us from accidentally doing a conversion of a large to a smaller data type. So we're going to take a look at that, and also we're going to see about the concept of widening and narrowing. And so I have before you a large glass and a small glass, the small glass with some fluid in it. Now obviously I can pour the small glass's contents into the larger glass, and that's called widening in computerese, because we're going from a smaller data type to a larger one, and I will not lose any contents or precision in my process of widening from a smaller to a larger data type. But if I were to go the other way and go from a large data type to a smaller one, well, you can imagine I'd have a mess. I'd lose some content, or in the case of our programming, we'd lose some value. So we need to be aware of the concept of widening and narrowing of data types. Also, we're going to be converting from certain data types to other data types, and we need to know how to do that conversion as well. So let's get into our code and learn how to do it. I've got Visual Studio up on the screen. I'm going to start a brand new project, and this project is going to be a console project, and I'm going to call it Option Strict Demo. I'm going to hit OK. Going to go full screen and change the magnification of the coding screen to 200%. Okay, let's put in our traditional console write line and our console read key to bring up the console and hold it there till we enter something on our keyboard. Now I'm going to declare two data types. In this case, I'm going to use a whole type data type. We're going to use the long, so I'm going to do a dim, a long value as long, and I'm going to also dim a integer, an integer value as integer. Okay, we've got our two values. A long one is 64 bits and an integer is 32 bits, an int 32. So we're going to, first of all, go from a smaller value to a larger value. So I'm going to take an integer value, and I'm going to place the number 49 into the location that an integer value points to. Then I'm going to take a long value, and I'm going to assign to it whatever an integer value has at its location. So basically we're going to go assign 49, a numeric value, to our integer location, and then we're going to go out to our integer location and assign it to our long type. And I'm going to output a long value. So here we have a situation where we're actually doing from narrow to wider. No precision loss, and you'll see that I have nothing on my screen that shows an error. And it runs perfectly, and I get the value of 49 showing up, which is a long value, in this case being displayed. Now let's go the opposite way. Let us change this. Instead of an integer value being first, we're going to do a long value. And I'm going to assign to it an integer value. And in this case, I'm going to come back and use a long value. And we're going to display an integer value. At this point, we don't see any errors showing up. I'm going from a bigger data type to a smaller data type. And if this would have been a larger number, we'd actually see that as I run it, I'd have a problem. Now, at this point, if I run this, I should get 49. And I do. But I've made an error. In one sense, I've violated the idea of going from a larger to smaller, and I have not become aware of that problem. So to become aware of that problem, we go up and go insert a couple of lines and then type in option strict on. Now right away you should see a problem show up, and in fact you do. You'll see right away that this does not allow it, and as I put my cursor there it says error correction option, and it's going to give me information. Option strict on disallows implicit conversion from long to integer on it. And I can come down here and actually take advantage of it and allow it to do a replacement for me, and you'll see that the option is convert to int. This is one of the Visual Basic reserved words, and it's converting whatever values inside the parentheses to an integer value. And because we are explicitly converting that to an integer value, we're aware of the activity that we're doing. So this one will work fine now that we've corrected it with option strict on to remind us that we need to convert it to the smaller integer value in this case. And if I run this, it'll work fine, and we'll see the value 49 showing up. There are other ways to convert as well, and what I'm going to do is use a .NET framework convert, which is a convert to int32, or yes, to int32. Int32 is the same as an integer, and in this case this will also work fine, and we'll see it work just as well. We'll get 49. So we can use the cint Visual Basic function, or we can use .NET's framework of the convert function on that to do that activity. Let's take a look at doing this same kind of thing with a fractional one. So let's look at a decimal value. Let me change that a little bit. Decimal value as decimal. And we'll change the one here to a double as double. And if you'll remember, a decimal is used because of its higher precision, especially when we're dealing with financial and monetary kinds of transactions. Now, double is double precision that allows us for floating point. So this time, let's make the first one being a double, which is a smaller, I should say decimal, being more precise, decimal value. And this time we're going to use 49.98 because it's a decimal, and we're going to convert it to a double. And this time we're going to use just try to take a double in there, or a decimal into a double, and right away we're seeing a lot of errors pop up. Okay, so before I even begin, I've got an error showing that option strict will disallow this conversion from double to decimal on that. Now I can force this to become, as I've keyed it in right now, it's keyed in as a double, but I can make it a decimal value by putting a capital D on the end, and that'll get rid of that error. At this point, I've got a situation where I've converted it to decimal. I've got now decimal to a double value, and we seem to have no problem with this. However, because we don't have any problem doesn't mean we shouldn't use the conversion. And here's where we want to put in convert to double as a way to convert that to a double. So we're consciously aware of converting it from a decimal value to a double value. We can also use, as I said, the .NET Frameworks version, and we can use convert to double on this one. And once again, this is a conscious decision to go from a decimal value to a double value, and it will work fine. In fact, I'll run it, and we see we get 49.98. Let's take a look now at dealing with things that we deal with a lot of times, and that's converting from numeric to string and string to numeric. So let's start out and declare a string as string, and we'll use a double here as a value. And this time I'm going to take a string value, or just a string I should say. Now let's say somebody keyed in the value of in quotations, because it's the string 1, 2, 3 on that. So I've got a string of 1, 2, 3. Remember we talked about a string literal, and so the string literal is the characters 1, 2, and 3 going into a string. Now I'm going to try to put that string into a double, and we see that we also have an error here, and it wants to be converted, and we can use the conversion on this one to convert it to double. Now I'll hit the replacement. We'll see a convert to double, and so we'll see the value of 1, 2, 3 being converted to a double data type and then put into our value. And this is a perfectly acceptable and fine way to do it. And we get value 1, 2, 3 on our screen. But we're displaying in this case on our screen this value, which is a double value. Well, there are other factors to do. We can also convert a string with the convert command, and we can use a convert to string on that to string, and then put in our a string value, or not convert to string, sorry, convert to double, and then put in our string, a string. And that'll work as well. So we can use the .NET convert class, or we can use the C to double, which is a Visual Basic function to convert it to a double, and it will work fine. Now, so remember, when we were working with a string and we want to do calculations, in this case, we don't do calculations on the string. We first have to convert it to a data type that we can work with. In this case, we were using a double data type that we're converting it to. Now let's go the other way. Let's take our value on this, and we'll put into it 49 or 45.98. And I want to convert it to a string. So I got a string, and my tendency would be wanting to do this real quickly. And we'll see that I've got an error, because this is, once again, option strict's on, and I can't convert from double to string. But I can use a value called the .NET one, convert to string, and do it this way. So now we're taking a numeric value, converting it to a string, and putting it in our string, and then I'm outputting a string. And this will work. And we get the value working fine. Once again, I'm using the .NET framework of the convert class. But one thing nice is also all our data types that we have that are numeric have a built-in function into the data type called a toString method. And so I can hit a toString method on this, and this value will be converted to string. And this is another way to do it, and it works fine. So we have the convert class with the .NET framework, or we have the internal two-string method that's part of the double data type, or all numeric data types have the two-string ability. So many times when we need to write to a text box or to the screen, we're writing a string value, but we were using the two-string method to write it out. So if I have the numeric value that I need to put on the screen, I'll have to convert it to a string value to output it to the screen. And here we have the right line outputting a string as the process. So we've looked today at doing the option strict in our code, and setting that as we're processing things. And one thing to remember, and I'm going to go back real quickly to Visual Studio, if we're starting a new project, we can come up to Tools, Option, go to the Projects and Solutions to VB Defaults, and turn on Option Strict for our project, or we can go to our program and type in at the very beginning, before the beginning of the module or class, Option Strict on, and this will force us to stay strict about how we process our data. We also looked at converting data from one type to another, and we used the internal Visual Basic convert to string, convert to double, convert to integer. Those are just a few of the convert keywords in Visual Basic. Also, we took a look at the convert class that's part of the .NET framework. We can use a convert dot method to convert from one type to another type. But the important thing is to keep option strict on. It forces us to be very precise in how we're using our data, so we don't make a mistake of losing something that's important, that's very large, and trying to put it into something very small. And also, as we're trying to put something to a string value on the screen that is in fact a numeric value to begin with, we need to convert it to a string. So the converting and watching of the narrowing of data types is a very important thing we need to be aware of when we program. So get your hands dirty in the code, practice a little bit on this, and make certain you make your narrowing and widening the way you want to have it. In the meantime, I'm going to enjoy my drink.